Welcome to Stump the Monk. Today we're going to have a conversation with my friend and old teacher Harry Bridge, who's the Jodo Shinshu minister and a teacher at the Institute for Buddhist Studies, a musician, and he's also the minister at the Buddhist Church of Oakland, and is an awesome guy, really wonderful. So please stick around and hear what we have to say.
Question 1. How can we employ compassion in our everyday?
Part of being a person is we kind of stumble through our life and we make lots of mistakes. We make lots of places where we maybe get angry or get frustrated, or people do things to us and we find ourselves in conflict. So I think in those moments, if we can take a breath and think about maybe what that person might be experiencing, or even just ourselves, can we just take a breath and try to feel some compassion for ourselves if we did something that's unskillful that we need to apologize for or whatever, or the person who maybe wronged us or we're in conflict with. Can we start to find a way so we can be mad at people and still have compassion for them? We can feel like people are evil or have done something wrong and still feel compassion for them and wish them peace and ease, and because I imagine also that I think about when I've done things that have been unskillful, when I've hurt people, and I realize that how painful that was for me to live through, being the person who was engaged in this. So I think that that's also a great way to start, is to start finding places to just feel like, that was really hard, or, you're feeling a little tenderhearted now, be a little kind. So, we can start with practicing for ourselves, and then we can hopefully then take pauses in our day to practice with other people. But I think like all things, often it's best to start just with your own experiences of, I did that. Oh, that really hurt. Or, I was really angry. Oh, that was really hard. And just kind of see if you can bring some compassion there. Can you bring some kindness, some open-heartedness, some acknowledgement that, that maybe wasn't the best choice in that moment.
Question 2. Can anger be useful? Absolutely.
I think there are things that that are happening in the world that if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. I think it's like so much of our life, it's not so much about my feeling, what I'm feeling, as what I do with it, right? So I can be angry, I can feel rage at the things that are going on in the world, and I can allow that to move me, or I can allow it to tie me up and stop me, right? Like it can totally freeze me. And so what I do with the rage or with the anger is more important than, because I don't know anybody who does it. Like I said, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And people do stuff all the time to hurt us. It's okay to be angry when we get hurt. It's okay to be angry. It's just part of the human experience. Can I just let myself let it, can I let it be there and not try to force it to be something else? And 2, can I see, is there some way it needs to motivate me, or does it need something? Is there, is it moving me in a particular kind of direction? Sometimes the people who hurt us we need to be angry to leave them. It's okay to love people from 300 feet away. And, how we know that is because people hurt us and they make us angry. And if I don't allow myself to be angry, I'm never going to be able to have the experience of setting a boundary and taking care of myself. So yeah, anger and rage and all of that stuff is really vital and important, and is just part of being a human being. And let's maybe not mess with it so much and just let it have its way. We don't have to necessarily do anything about it, but if it's making a request, see if you can follow through with that request. So today we're joined by Harry Gyoko Bridge. He's the resident minister of Buddhist Church of Oakland. He's lived in both the United States and Japan and was exposed to Buddhism during college. Went on to study it at graduate school in both Berkeley and Kyoto. His first temple assignment was the Buddhist Church of Lodi. His current assignment at the Buddhist Church in Oakland began in 2009. And besides being a minister, he's also a husband. His wife's name is Mika, a musician, bass guitarist, really well done, and a cat servant. And he's also the adjunct professor at the Institute of Buddhist Studies and produces a podcast called Dharma Realm, and you can find it at dharmarealm.com. And he's also one of my favorite professors when I was in seminary at the Institute for Buddhist Studies. And I've gotten to hear you give Dharma talks, both at San Francisco Zen Center, where I lived for 10 years, but then also snuck in the back of the Buddhist Church of Oakland a couple of times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
So yeah, and I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for coming. Today we're going to sort of focus a bit on Jodo Shinshu, which is the form of Buddhism that you have immersed yourself in, and how it gets expressed in the United States, but then also with a kind of focus on compassion practice, because I think that in my studies at IBS, that was one of the things that really stuck out to me about Jodo Shinshu was the practice of compassion was so deeply embedded that it's almost, I don't want to say invisible, but it's also not, it's sort of like when you're in Japan and you go, what religion are you? They're like, well, we just do what we do. Right? And that's sort of how I feel about compassion inside of Jodo Shinshu. Like it's just, this is how it is, right? And so it's not invisible, but at the same time it's not, you have to kind of,
it's different than like other schools.
Yeah.
The presentation is very different.
Completely different. And especially the way it's presented here, I think, in the United States, in large part due to World War II and the internment of Japanese Americans. I think that trauma of being interred in concentration camps inside the United States, because you don't use tatamis, and so from a lot of ways, it actually doesn't look as Japanese as it used to, right? So you guys are called ministers and
churches,
right? Yeah, your
Church
churches,
of
right?
Oakland, and yeah.
And then also that you use pews instead of kneeling or those kinds of things. And so there's this sense of like an Americanized version of it, which I know happened. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, it's a really interesting story of, well, Buddhist Churches of America, maybe we can say, and Jodo Shinshu, that version of Jodo Shinshu, because there's many different schools, you know, there's like 10 or 11 branches in Japan, and there's other ones here. Higashi Honganji is also here, we're more Nishi Honganji.
Right.
But yeah, it's bound up with the Japanese immigrant experience, and that story. So sometimes they can seem like the same thing, but they're different aspects of you know, a shared kind of story.
Right.
And there's Japanese Americans who are Christian too, right? And so it's like, I gotta remember that sometimes, you know, because I'm like, like you say, I'm really immersed in the BCA community, my Buddhist Church of Oakland community, right? And so, you know, always having to remember, oh yeah, there are Japanese Americans that aren't BCA, or, you know, or whatever, I just kind of forget.
Right,
you know, I have to kind of remind myself of the diversity of Japanese American experience too.
Right. Well, and Jodo Shinshu actually has a growing population of white people that it's not just Japanese Americans practicing now.
Right. Not just white people, like just
Yeah.
and non-Japanese people. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
It's so hard to, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
and so there is this, and it's, to me, it's really interesting because I think part of what makes Jodo Shinshu really so wonderful for me is that, the churches are such community centers as well. Like they're not just like the place you go on Sunday and chant and get your dose of Dharma, although that's possible. But there's still also, like, you have Dharma schools and you do a lot of eating and teaching and community building in ways that I think even Japanese Zen, which I practice, doesn't do so well. Like, it's not such, the place I went, although it's predominantly white, it's still not like a super community centered place, right? Like, and I think that part of what's interesting about Jodo Shinshu is that the practice is this community building at the same time.
And that's part of the history. Like Buddhist Churches of America dates back to 1899 is the date we look at. Buddhist Church of Oakland is 1901.
Wow, yeah.
So it's like we've got almost 125 years of history. So a lot of it is connected to that.
Right.
And then it began with only Japanese people for the most part. First generation, right? Who are gathering together. They start the Japanese schools. So a lot of the churches, Buddhist churches and Christian churches, also had Japanese language schools for the children.
Right.
And so BCO still has their Nippongo Gakuen. We still have a Japanese school that dates back to before World War II.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's kind of part of it, right? Is that it's not like we just started this in the 70s or 80s or something,
right?
Or even the 50s or 60s. It started in 1901,
right? Yeah.
Right. And so still a lot of the families are descendants of those first generation founders of the church.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of it too. I mean, it's not like we created it. Well, it did create it out of a vacuum in a way, but it's a 120-year-old vacuum. Right? So.
Well, and I think like Soto Zen, like San Francisco Zen Center grew out of the Suzuki, where she first came, was invited to come by the Japanese immigrant community to teach at the Soto Zen temple in Japantown.
Is it? And that's the one that's still there in the corner?
Yeah. I think they've changed corners.
Okay.
But they're still there, and I think that, and then hippies sort of came and kind of at one point the Japanese immigrant community made Suzuki Roshi make a choice. And that's how we ended up with San Francisco Zen Center. I think that as someone from a predominantly white community, we have a lot of work to do in kind of including our ancestral communities. Like there's not a lot of interaction between the immigrant or heritage Buddhists, like at the Soto Zen temple in Japantown, or even the Buddhist Churches of America. We don't have a lot of, like with the heritage Buddhists and the sort of predominantly white Buddhist circles, they don't really interact much.
Right.
And I think that's largely a responsibility of ours as white people to kind of look at that and think about how do we exclude in that way, right? Like we want to be really, it's interesting because we want to be really sort of responsible for the lineage and, we understand our history, and yet, we don't really interact much with them in the same kinds of ways.
I think in Buddhist Churches of America, I think there have always been people from outside that Japanese community interested
right.
in coming in and feeling welcome or not.
Right.
World War II changed things. I think we'll talk more about it later. But
right.
that I think that internment was very traumatic. And after that, coming back to American society, it was like you didn't want to be like, hey, look at us, we're different. Remember us?
Right.
It was kind of like, okay, let's
fly under the radar.
Yeah, leave us alone. And then so when non-Japanese people come in, it was kind of like, what are you doing here? Why are they here? Kind of, it became, I think that was a dynamic, a really strong dynamic. And you look at pictures from the 50s and 60s, a lot of people getting married, so you see pictures from then of like the hall filled with people, long tables, eating like a kind of a formal meal.
Right.
They're all Japanese.
Wow, yeah.
So that was their refuge.
Right.
from the difficulties of what they faced, and
Right.
you know that they could continue to go there, and that's been changing a lot in the past 30, 40 years, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So that it's not really that anymore. Although a lot of people still do come, you know,
Right, yeah.
children in the camps or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
my 80 and 90-year-old people were like kids.
Right, yeah. Well,
70s, 80s,
George
90s,
Takei
yeah.
talks about like his experiences in the camps, and I think that it's. I don't know if it's predominantly a California experience of like, because so many of the camps were here in California, that and so when they, you know, when people were released from the camps, they I would imagine they just sort of stayed here, right? Like this was the closest place, rather than returning back to wherever they were before.
Well, I think. Well, it obviously was different for everyone, and some people
Right.
had no place to return to.
Right.
Their
Right.
stuff was taken.
Right.
You couldn't pay your property tax while you're in prison. So
Right.
how convenient. You just got a house. You just got a
Right.
farm. You know.
Yeah.
Really horrible. You know what they did, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Buddhist Church of Oakland's an interesting case because it's in Chinatown,
Mm-hmm.
but before World War II, that was like a quarter to a third Japantown.
Wow.
And a lot of Japanese people living in that area, a lot of Japanese-owned businesses. After the internment, they didn't move back there.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think they moved to the general area.
Right.
So the BCO membership is scattered all over the East Bay and even other places, right?
Yeah.
So that out in Concord and the San Leandro kind of area, the
Right.
nurseries and everything, and Berkeley,
Right.
and Richmond,
Fresno,
you know, they're spread all
yeah.
over the place,
Yeah.
right? So, but they still come. It's
Right.
interesting. So we're a commuter church, right? That they come on Sunday.
Wow,
So
that's
that's one
really-
aspect of our community that they don't live there anymore. They
Right.
used to hear that concho, the calling bell, right? That we
Right.
start service with. I think some people heard it and came from their
Wow.
house because they lived right nearby.
Right.
Oh, concho's ringing, time to go. You know, now it's like they live so far away that it's,
Yeah.
it's
But still, that response of like, okay, the site, not returning to the site of trauma, right? Like, they didn't want to come back to this same place, and yet they found this refuge that was still there.
yeah.
That I think is also really meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting too, because a lot of, like when I was in seminary, I went to a Jodo Shinshu seminary, and a lot of the people there, more than the chaplains, were ministers training to be ministers in Jodo Shinshu. And a lot of those that I got to meet and be friends with were, their story was really interesting because they were either second or third generation, and they would sort of grew up in Jodo Shinshu and then sort of went off and tried to not, assimilate or whatever, and then found themselves needing to come back and get involved in the church again because of a sense of loss from being out in sort of mainstream, in the ways in which I think Asian people are still sort of put upon in, the model minority stuff that happens and all of that kind of thing. And so I think it's really interesting how many of my friends who are ministers sort of are returners in some kind of way, and I think that says something also about the strength of the community that's built inside of the church, and
See, I don't know a lot of those stories. That's great because you were friends with them.
Right.
You were a fellow student.
right,
Right. I was teacher by that point.
Right.
So I didn't, they're my students kind of,
Mhm.
but I haven't heard those stories in a way.
right,
So maybe that's something we should do is collect some of these stories of our younger, newer ministers.
right,
And just kind of collect so that those stories can be heard. Right.
Right.
Because that's really interesting. I'm a convert.
right.
I didn't grow up
really?
with this at all.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I came to it during college. My mom became Christian. My mom's Japanese.
Uh-huh.
And my family is Soto Zen.
Oh, wow.
In Iwate, northeastern Japan.
Oh, okay.
But my mom became Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh my goodness. So you
She
grew up
converted.
Mormon?
No, it's not Mormon. It's Seventh-day Adventist is their own thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're the ones. I think they're not supposed to have caffeine.
Oh,
But
yeah.
they're really into medicine, so she
Mhm.
became. That's partly why she did it. She went to she met Seventh-day Adventists in high school, and then went to nursing school after that. So
Right.
that was her escape in a way. That was her way to get
Oh.
away from the village and go into it, find a profession. I think Seventh-day Adventists are big on medicine, so
Right.
they have like a hospital college in Okikubo in Tokyo.
Mhm.
So that's where she went.
Oh, I see.
And but
Right.
I'll say it. Fortunately, there was no church nearby when we moved back to the United States. So I grew up nothing. I was like nominal Christian at best.
Wow,
right?
interesting.
My dad wasn't really. My dad was nominal Christian. He never really went to church. Didn't grow up with it. So I got a very to me, American secular upbringing.
Right.
My Christianity was Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. Right? That was it. And I didn't realize it was Christian until much later, and I watched it. I was like, this is a Linus. Like, he's totally Christian, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow.
Right. Well, and I think that that's really interesting about American culture because it is so indoctrinated. And until I sort of had to leave the Christian church and sort of, came out as queer and had my problems with Christianity, that I started to see all of the little ways in which we just get so indoctrinated with it and the assumptive nature of it, right? And so I think it's really interesting then to sort of go, oh, wait. And then I think about like how I found my way to Zen, right? Like a series of stupid accidents, really. And
causes and conditions.
Right. Well, yeah. But I think it's really funny. Like I think about it, and I just think, wow. I could have ended up anywhere, but this is what at the time, 30 years ago, was salvic for me in a way. Like it eased the suffering that I was feeling, and in a kind of interesting way, so that if I had ended up feeling like I'd gone to other traditions and had those experiences and they were great, but they didn't give me the same ease that I found when I started practicing Buddhism. I started off in Vipassana, insight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And practiced that for 8 years. And part of it was really great because that gave me the ability to practice, but also kind of, I had a real anti-religiosity kind of thing going. And so it really became like, I just want to meditate and read scripture. Like I didn't want, total white waspy kind of experience. Now when you study and go, oh yeah, that's completely a colonial take on things. But, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like I can shed all of the religion because I was so burned by religion. And so, it gave me the ability, and then, finding my way into something that, now people, I think of myself as a religious person, and argue with people a lot that Buddhism isn't a religion, it's not a philosophy. And
it's a very philosophical religion.
Right. Well, I think
but it's not pure philosophy, right?
Right, but I think that, when you go to school and you hang out with people who are not meditators, and for whom there's a faith, you call it Shinjin and Jodo Shinshu, like I think that really helped me see, like, oh wait, no, this is a religion, right? Like I think once you leave the meditation hall and you sort of get in the world with other Buddhists who are not necessarily just trapped in the meditation hall, but really look at like, oh, Jodo Shinshu is the fastest growing stream of Buddhism in the world, from what I understand. I'm super politically active, and I often call out or help problematize sort of patriarchal systems, or like I just released I posted about a group in Sri Lanka that are not letting the nuns be people because they're not getting ID cards, and it's a way to kind of minimize the power. And I said, they should be ashamed of themselves because it's the power structure in Sri Lankan Buddhism that's doing this, right? And people were like, well, that's not very compassionate. For you to call, to tell these people that this is not okay,
right,
and that this is a problem. And I get the same response when I say things like, when Trump was elected, there was a big conversation in the Zen world about, whether or not it was okay to say that, hate speech is not okay. And there's not a place for hate.
Passionate for them too.
Right, and it's often used in this way to kind of uphold white supremacy, patriarchy, homophobia, transphobia. Like it's this idea of like, well, everybody's welcome, so I don't have to be. Since I don't have to be a good person, I can just stay in this ignorant sludge and not have to challenge my ideas. And I think that, and then they use this compassion practice or this everybody welcome practice as sort of justification for staying ignorant or staying unskillful, right? And I think that, you know, so what would you say Shinran would say about that, or Jodo Shinshu would say about that? I mean, because you don't want to say no, there's not space for you here, but at the same time, you want to make sure people understand you still have to. You still can't cause suffering. You know.
Well, and I think we have to be careful. We can criticize hate speech,
right,
and still try and be compassionate for the person doing it.
Right.
Right? So that the person doing it can still be accepted.
Right.
But they have work to do.
Right.
Because the hate speech is wrong, and you don't get to just do that.
Right.
You don't get to just kill somebody and then be like, oh no, it's okay, we accept you. Right? It's like no. So that's a true truth level where, and that's interesting about Amida Buddha accepting you as you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's Amida Buddha for your salvation.
Right.
For your liberation,
right,
your enlightenment.
Right.
It doesn't mean, and you can continue to go on hurting people and just go ahead. We don't care. No.
Let's keep the concentration camps, or let's,
right,
you know,
right.
yeah.
I really, that level of, and I remember hearing that as a student and
mm-hmm.
as a seeker, right? That even though 7 or billions of kalpas of karma might be, or evil karma might be eradicated,
right,
I'm still responsible for my actions.
Right.
I still have to face the consequences in daily life.
Right.
I don't get to then go out and rob banks and kill people and nothing's going to happen because Amida Buddha protects me to do that.
Right.
No, that's not what it's talking about.
Right.
Whatever happens, you still have to face the music in samsara.
Right.
And yet, you'll still be born in the Pure Land.
Right.
Right? And so, knowing that you're born in the Pure Land, why would you stay that way and continue to do it?
Right.
So that's the issue with like, the 18th vow. So Nembutsu, the reciting Buddha's name, Namo
right,
Amida Butsu, Namo Mitofo, right, comes from the 18th vow of Amida Buddha.
Right.
Right? And it has an exclusion clause.
Ah.
Excluded are those who commit the 5 grave acts and the 10 evils or whatever, or slander the right dharma. Right? So there is an exclusion. But Shinran kind of massages that out. Based on Tanwan and Shandao, some of the Chinese masters.
Right.
And basically, I think what it comes out to is, if you really hear the Dharma,
mm-hmm.
if you're really touched by this, you're not going to stay continuing to slander the Dharma, continuing to hurt people,
yeah.
continuing to indulge in the 3 poisons.
Right.
Right? That there is a transformation that takes place, and you don't get to use the vow to excuse bad behavior,
right?
Which happened a lot. It's called licensed evil, or
right?
So akumuge is a Japanese, like unimpeded evil.
Yeah.
It's the real translation, right? But licensed evil. That it's okay. I should do this. Amida Buddha accepts me. I'm in. Now I can do what I want.
Right.
No. And then Shinran says, knowing that there's an antidote, why would you continue to take more poison?
Right.
That's one of the expressions he uses in his letters, because people were doing that.
Right.
People in the community were doing that.
Yeah.
They were continuing to hurt people, to indulge. So I think for Shinran, it's like,
and we see that now in the world, right? Like, I mean, we look at this licensed evil. I mean, it feels so heavy to me because it does feel like this licensed evil. Mm-hmm. You know, like it. You know, I see stuff and I just think, oh my God, that's just evil. Like there's no. And so often I find myself going, I can't understand how you got there, right? Like, like how did we become a place where, starving children get to exist, right? Like, how did we become
capitalism?
Well, yeah, but how did we, like I look at it and I just think, like, of course we need to feed these people. Of course we need to have these people.
But that doesn't seem to be the,
right.
majority viewpoint.
Of course we can't lock children up, separate them from their families and lock them in cages.
Well, they broke the law by coming over here.
but they didn't. They were seeking asylum.
I know.
Right? Like,
but how do people?
Yeah. And so this licensed evil, and it does weigh on me because I do get, like there are people who want to come at me and say, oh, that's not the Dharma. That's not that we just need to, mind our own business and, and that's not the Dharma. And I just think, how can that not be the Dharma? Like if I the more I sit, the more I see my life, the more I experience the world as it is, I just become so sensitive to that piece, right? Like I become sensitive to the people I love who then experience moments of harm. Like, it's because I love my friends who are people of color that I just can't continue to sort of not undo the white supremacy that I, am immersed in, or because I love the women in my life or the non-masculine people in my life, I can't perpetuate this patriarchy, right? Like I have to work to undo it in myself, but also in the world. Like I just can't not do that because I love them. Like, and that love becomes so big, and like I read these stories and I cry. Like sometimes I go online and I tell my other friends, I need kitty pictures. I need right? Like I need to know that there's good in the world. And I think Jodo Shinshu offers that in a lot of ways because you do come together as a community and sort of spend time with each other in this loving way, right? And the practice of compassion is, like I said, to me it's always felt just sort of, this is what we do, right? I think it's when I experience other Buddhist schools or Buddhist communities that I find that kind of pulling of between white supremacy and patriarchy and the need to uphold those systems and the defense of like our own ignorance around it. So what would a non like just a regular practitioner in Jodo Shinshu, what would sort of how would they see compassion being cultivated in their life?
I mean, I don't know if I can answer that right away, because another important aspect of Shinshu is that other power aspect, right? And so I think part of the practice, I think, for Shinran was realizing that my compassion is limited.
Right.
I think he felt great compassion for the people around him that he saw suffering. But then he also, I think, realized that his compassion was limited, right? And so that practicing compassion isn't the path once again, right? And yet, the flip side is then finding compassion coming to you, right? And encountering this compassion that comes to you, and I've heard it said, where if you realize, wow, Buddha accepts me as I am, it becomes then maybe it becomes possible to accept others as they are. Yeah. Because isn't that one of the hardest things to do? Right. What's your problem? Why are you like that? Why can't you? It's like constantly judging, constantly criticizing, constantly, complaining, right? And yet, if having been realized, wait a second, I've got so much guilt towards myself, but I'm okay. Right. I'm accepted as I am. Right. Wow, maybe that can change. How I then treat others, right? So Shinshu is so interesting but at the same time, Dharma school traditionally has taught general Buddhism, which is a term I hate, but I get it too, right? Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Six Paramitas, blah, 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 right? And I think those are actually important so that we understand that this is what we're building on. Right. This is the goal. This is ideally we could do this stuff. Right. But for Shinshu, I think it's almost like try and be aware when you're not doing it. Right. And try and realize, I thought I was such a nice guy, but then I just blew up at this person for nothing. Someone asked me to write a decaf sign for the coffee, because I'm not in charge of the coffee, but it's kind of like this territory that I have at the church. And 1 month, we have these new groups. Actually, one thing we've done, we've tried to dismantle patriarchy to a certain extent by no longer making the Buddhist Women's Association do all the kitchen work.
Great.
And we're spreading things out,
Yeah.
and now we have like these kind of, we call them host groups, whole own service teams. So, but I like host too, where it's like each month a different group is responsible for greeting, for the coffee and the snacks, for garden, to carrying the temple, right? So anyway, she wanted a decaf sign. It made me so mad. It's like, we're not gonna make decaf. What is wrong with these people? I was like, fine. Where, do you want it on this paper? It's just good enough. And I give it to her, and she goes off, and I was mad for like 10 minutes.
Right.
I'm like trying to get ready for service, so angry.
Right.
For a decaf sign?
Right.
It's a big deal. Like, that set me off. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't stop being angry.
Right.
So it triggered something.
Right.
But then I had to realize, wow, that's that's me.
Right. Yeah.
Anger.
Right.
All it takes is mention decaf, and all of a sudden, oh, no, you know. That's me. It's okay, but see it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm now entitled to go and yell at them.
Right. Right.
Maybe I will,
Right.
but I gotta apologize after.
Right.
I'm not entitled to this anger.
Right.
But to see it is key, I think, in Shinshu.
Right.
And to see, but not so much to be like, oh, stop that. Don't do it. Don't get angry. That's not it either. It's, wow, even with this anger, I'm embraced.
Yeah.
And to me, the anger leaving wasn't me doing it. It was either me just kind of that shutting off, or something from outside, like calming it down.
So thanks so much for coming. I love this conversation. And I
I
love...
think we could do like 10 more episodes easily.
Oh my God, well that's the thing, right? Like this is a never-ending thing. Because I'd love to sit down with you and talk about music too, as an expression of the Dharma. And actually maybe get you and Scott in, who you do the Dharma Realm podcast with, and sit down and like both of you and I can have this great conversation about music, because I think that it's an expression of practice that is also really awesome.
It's something and one thing we didn't talk about that I find to me, my favorite Buddhist doctrine is middle way.
Yeah.
And it's come up a little bit like indirectly. But I really feel like that's part of where compassion works for me, I think, is if I find myself being down on myself, or find myself getting frustrated, realize, well, I'm heading off to this extreme. So what can I do to kind of bring it back? Right. And even realizing, I think I'm at an extreme here, helps. Already the pendulum kind of helps to swing back. And so for me, Buddhism and music is like a balancing game. It's a balancing act. It's not easy.
No.
Right? Sometimes I wish I could just not be a minister anymore and go hit the first into music. Other times I realize, no, Buddhism is where I'm able to help people.
Right.
So, yeah. But that sounds like fun.
And so yes, we could do this all day, but we both have to go and actually earn a living, and hang out with your wife and do all those things. But thanks so much for coming, and I hope that we can have more conversations. So it's dharmarealm.com is the podcast you and Scott do, and it's awesome, by the way. I listen to it whenever they release a new one. And also they can find you at IBS and the Buddhist Church of Oakland.
Yep.
Which is actually in Chinatown between
8th and 9th on Jackson.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and I'm on
check it
Facebook
out.
and Instagram, Twitter.
Right. Well, we'll link to your Instagram when we put it out, and So come back and see us next time. When I think I'm having a conversation with someone about shame. So.
Hey everybody, Fred here, the producer and editor of the show. We hope you enjoyed our 4th episode and that your 2020 is starting off really well. If you have any feedback or questions for Daigan in our opening segment, please let us know. We are all ears and would love to hear from you. If you haven't seen already, there have been some changes to our format as well as our Patreon tiers. So please do check those out if that's of interest to you. We've essentially made them a little bit cheaper and more accessible for everybody. So we really appreciate your support, whether that's monetary or otherwise. Please share this show with people who you think would enjoy it, and we hope you enjoy what we have coming up for you. Thanks so much.